Good evening, everyone. I think it's evening. Oh, 2 minutes. Good almost evening, everyone. Although by the time you guys watch this, it will indeed be evening. So, guys, what are we going to talk about today? We've got some things to talk about today, and I'm going to be adding these together with a little bit of speculation and a little bit of assumption work. When I'm giving you guys assumptions and speculation, I'll let you know that there are assumptions and speculations. And when I'm giving you facts and figures, I'll tell you their facts and figures and how I'm fitting these two together. But guys, you know, I had to go into Rotherham Town Centre today. And I walked through the bus station. If any of you have ever been to Rotherham and you've been to the multi-storey car park, then it's literally at the side of the bus station. And, you know, for some reason I just thought, you know what, I'm going to walk through the bus station. And guys, it was absolutely grim. You know, there was a feeling of just despair, and a lot of people, how do I say this politely? There was a lot of people who looked like they'd taken something that potentially might not have been bought over the counter legally. You guys know what I'm saying. You know, and it was just very scary to walk through there and think, you know, this is the world that we're living now, you know. And I don't know whether it's the same where you guys live, but there really was a feeling, you know, of just an absolute feeling of despair as I walked through there. And it didn't help either with the absolutely ridiculous British weather that we've got at the moment. I mean, you know, I think it's like, it's the solstice or something in a couple of days. You know, and it's absolutely like, in fact, is it the solstice? Yeah. You know, and it's absolutely freezing. You know, I walked outside, it was freezing, the wind's blowing, the trees are going all over the place. I just thought, wow, this, you know, I don't think, could things get much worse? Anyway, guys, so what we're going to talk about initially on this video is this thing that's been happening with the Hunter Biden situation and how he's been involved in Ukraine. And what I'm going to tie this to is something that was announced yesterday at this peace summit by Vice President Kamala Harris. So let me just read quickly then from an NBC. This is me reading now, guys, from an NBC News article. I'm going to read it absolutely word for word, all right? So this is not me making this up. This is what NBC News are saying, and I will highlight some of these points, and I'll elaborate on them a little bit. And obviously, I'll put in a little bit of speculation when it's when I feel it's necessary. Okay, so analysis of Hunter Biden's hard drive shows his firm took in about 11 million from 2013 to 2018. For those of you who remember, Hunter Biden got a job, well, it'll come on to that actually, guys. So from 2013 to 2018, Hunter Biden and his company brought in about 11 million via his roles as an attorney as a board member with a Ukrainian firm accused of bribery, and his work with a Chinese businessman now accused of fraud. So straight away, things don't look very good for Hunter Biden. You know, it looks like, you know, companies he's working for are accused of bribery, Ukrainian companies accused of bribery. I don't know, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments if you think that's a thing. Chinese businessmen being accused of fraud. Again, accusations aren't proof, but it's, you know, it's just very murky, this water that Hunter Biden's walking in now. According to an NBC News analysis of a copy of Biden's hard drive and iCloud account, I'm not sure how they got that. I think that's hacking. Is that hacking? I don't know. The documents and the analysis, which don't show what he did to earn the money from his Chinese partner, raised questions about national security. So basically what they're saying there is a load of money turned up and they've no idea what he did for it. Who knows? I don't know. You don't know. The reality is only Hunter Biden and the person who put the money in his account will know what that money was for. Was it for information? Was it for... It could have been for anything, guys, right? But as we come on, I'll give you a little bit of speculation on what this could have been for. The document analysis didn't show what he did, which raised questions about national security, business ethics and potential legal exposure. In December 2020, Biden acknowledged in a statement that he was the subject of a federal investigation into his taxes. NBC News was the first to report that an ex-business partner had warned Biden he should amend his tax returns to disclose $400,000 in income from the Ukrainian firm Burisma. A GOP congressional source also said that if Republicans take back the House this fall, they'll demand more documents and probe whether any of the Biden's income went to his father, President Joe Biden. So straight away you see, money being hidden and money not being, the whole thing just seems really, really dirty to me. Now, all this time, Hunter Biden is working in Ukraine with these Ukrainian energy companies, Burisma. What's he doing there? What's he putting his money in? What's he introducing investors in for? Where's that network expanded to? No government ethics rules apply to him, which is fair, said Walter Schaub, a former director of the Office of Government Ethics, who is now an ethics expert. So what they're saying there is, this government ethics rule that, I assume that all the US politicians, congressmen have to abide by, doesn't apply to Hunter Biden, which it doesn't, because he's not, he isn't one. But the proximity to Hunter Biden and his father, Joe, it's kind of like, it's the same thing. Those guys are, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Those guys will be working together, I've no doubt. But it's going to be very interesting as things move forwards. Now we've seen this connection to Hunter Biden, to Ukrainian gas, to Ukrainian energy, to this spectrum of, to this sphere, I guess, of producing gas, producing energy, supplying, demand, all this sort of stuff. You've got Hunter Biden now firmly in the middle of that, and it looks like he's in murky water just with that alone. Now, coming on to what happened yesterday in the in the peace summit in Switzerland, that there's 90 nations and various NGOs and other organisations there, but you've got Vice President Harris yesterday unveiling a 1.5 billion US dollar aid package for new energy and humanitarian aid for Ukraine. So 1.5 billion. So let's unpack that a little bit and see where that 1.5 billion is going. Remember, just keep in the back of your mind that you've got Hunter Biden now heavily involved with the Ukrainian energy sector. And I'm not, and I'm not saying that any of these are connected. I'm just speculating that they could be. So US Vice President Kamala Harris announced on Saturday a new 1.5 billion. Guys, and just when we say a billion, I don't think we understand, how much a billion is. That is a lot of money, I mean, if I had $1 billion, I wouldn't work again, guys. I would be totally fine. I'd go away, I'd buy a castle I'd have a castle built somewhere, somewhere in Texas. I'd be one of those, weird people who lives in the hills all on their own, and that'd be me good, guys, with $1 billion. But unfortunately, I'm not, and I get to do videos for you beautiful people. Saturday, a new 1.5 billion aid package for Ukraine focused primarily on the war-torn country's energy sector and humanitarian assistance. So, straight away you've got the energy sector, and then I think they're just throwing the humanitarian assistance in there as, to make it sound nice. Harris unveils the package while attending a 2-day Ukrainian peace summit in Switzerland. She said the package included 500 million new funding for energy assistance and the redirecting of other previously announced 324 million towards energy funding projects. So straight away, most of this money it's going to be new funding for energy assistance. What does energy assistance mean? What comes under that, under that umbrella? This funding will repair energy infrastructure damaged in the war, expand power generation. That's the key thing there, guys, okay? Expand power generation. We'll come back to that. Encourage private sector investment and protect energy infrastructure, the White House said in a statement on Saturday. These efforts will help Ukraine respond to Russia's latest attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure by supporting repair and recovery, improving Ukraine's resilience to energy supply disruptions, and laying the groundwork to repair and expand Ukraine's energy system. So let's just focus on that bit there, guys, okay? Expand Ukraine's energy system. So what do they mean by expanding Ukrainians' energy system? Does that mean this money's gonna go to gas fields and expand the production of gas? Remember, we've had Nord Stream, we've had the Nord Stream pipeline stop working for whatever reason. We've recently had the Ukrainians say they're not going to let the Russians transit their gas through Ukraine anymore. So that's going to leave a mass demand in Europe for cheap gas. Well, look what's happening, guys. All of a sudden, you've got $1.5 billion being announced for the Ukrainian energy structure. Will this money be funneled into private companies that are doing gas production? Will this money be given to as investment so people can get more gas out of the ground? If they're getting more gas out of the ground, who's going to profit from that? Are the Ukrainian people going to profit from that? Are the Ukrainian people going to get cheaper energy? Or is this energy that's being, the excess energy that's made from this money that they're expanding Ukraine's energy system? This expansion to Ukraine's energy system, is the excess gas going to be, I don't know, sold into Europe? And if so, who's going to profit? Now, guys, this is just me speculating. I am 100% speculating here. Let me know if you think I'm right in the comments or not. But would it be a hard speculation to say that Hunter Biden may have interests in these energy sources? Would it be speculation to say that Hunter Biden and his group may have bought some of these energy facilities that need refurbishing? Would any of this 1.5 billion of US taxpayers' money be put into that system, and then would that inadvertently, go back to the Biden family? I don't know, guys. That is just me speculating. I'm sure that as time goes on, as we move forward, that all this is going to come out. If Trump wins in November, which I don't know what could stop him winning at this point, But if Trump does win in November, I feel you're going to see this thing all blown open, and you're going to see where this money was spent, where this money is going. You're going to see, a vast amounts of, what's the word I'm looking for? Dodgy dealings, under the table dealings. And I think this, with this unveiling today, the 1.5 billion, I think people are going to be looking at that and saying, okay, where did that money actually go? And I think if you follow that money, speculating, I think if you follow that money, that could potentially go back to, the Biden family or investment portfolios that these guys are involved with. Again, you're never going to be able to tie it to these guys, because it's all done with handshakes and trust and, backroom dealings. But I think, reading from it, that's kind of what I'm getting, guys, okay? And obviously, if Trump does win, remember what I said, months ago, probably in December, people were saying, what's the next phase in this conflict that we're living through? And I said, well, you need to watch, because whatever happens, you're going to see it happen in February. And then February came, and people were saying, oh, Sean, you said that the World War III was going to start in February. I didn't. I said you'll see what's happening, and and you did. In February, you started to see this divergence between the US and the UK, and what you're seeing now, you're seeing it more and more and more come to the surface. And I think yesterday Trump said, in fact, I'll read you the article, actually, what Trump said. So the article, Trump threatens to cut US aid to Ukraine quickly if re-elected. And then there's a picture of some guy in a Superman top behind him. Former US President Donald Trump said on Saturday, the scale of the US support for Ukraine... Sorry, I misread that. Former US President Donald Trump on Saturday blasted the scale of US support for Ukraine and said that if he is re-elected in November, he would immediately have that settled. So straight away, you're seeing this divergence. You're seeing, you know, the US start to, you know, pull away from this Ukrainian war. That's not because it's, you know, it's real. This is all smoke and mirrors. The real reason that that the Americans don't want to overcommit in Ukraine is because they see this rise of China. I've talked about Thucydides' trap, where violence is the normal, not the exception. You know, and they're seeing the rise of China and looking like a potential conflict with China, potential conflict in the Middle East, you know. So all of this stuff, we're starting to see the path laid out in front of us. Excuse me. So that's why all these events that we're seeing, they have to be laid out and they have to happen before November. That's kind of why I think this war in Ukraine will be pretty much announced before November. And remember what we said from that Andrew Bridgen interview, July, August, maybe a little bit later, which would fit perfectly into these timelines. Let me just continue. At a campaign rally in Detroit, Trump criticised President Volodymyr Zelensky, calling him the greatest salesman of all time. I mean, come on, when Donald Trump's calling you the greatest salesman of all time, I mean, he should at least, you know, Zelensky should at least go, "Thank you, Mr. President." For Kiev's push to secure US support in its efforts to defend Ukraine against Russian aggression more than 3 years after Moscow's all-out invasion. And then Trump says, "He left just days ago with 60 billion, and he gets home and he announces that he needs another 60 billion. It never ends," Trump said. So you can kind of see where, you know, Trump as a businessman, he's just seeing this money going in. And, you know, he kind of doesn't want to spend it. And, you know, people have got to do what they do, guys, all right? We're living in absolute wild times, you know. We shouldn't really be criticised over the decisions people make. You know, none of this would be happening if Vladimir Putin didn't invade in the first place. And, you know, those of you who've been watching this channel, I don't accept the provocation argument. I don't accept the NATO expansion argument. If the NATO expansion argument was a thing, then why has Putin not got troops on the Finnish border? So none of this makes sense. You know, the reality is Putin wants Kiev because it's a jewel. So as all this is happening, guys, okay, in the UK, like I've just, you know, previously alluded to, we have got a cost of living crisis. And I think everybody in the UK at the moment really is in denial. You know, those of you who don't know, we have, I've got a certain amount of food and water kept in our basement, and every year we change that out. And you know, I've said this before, so I won't dwell on it. But every year I change that out. We just go like for like. Yes, I know you should use through it and swap and change it and use it as you can, but we just don't do that. We just change it one for one. Excuse me. The old stuff we take camping with us, we use it with the kids going out and stuff over the summer, and then the rest of it we just, hang on. What, sweetheart? Yeah, I'm just doing a video and you're on it. It's my daughter. Is that okay? Right, sorry guys, my daughter's just asking for mac and cheese. So anyway, apart from mac and cheese, yeah, where was I? Yeah, so the cost of living crisis, you know, everything's going up. And because I change this food out every year, I remember what I paid for it last year. And I'm just looking at it now and I'm thinking, wow, this has just gone up ridiculously, you know. The cost of fuel in the UK, diesel in particular, you know, I read an article a couple of days ago saying that the UK is the most expensive place for diesel. Now, for normal, you know, if we're thinking about that, you know, as in I'm going to drive to work and go to the shops, it doesn't really make that much difference. But if you're a haulage company, if you're a transport company, if you run a fleet of vehicles, your costs go up ridiculously. And if your costs go up, the cost to the customer goes up. So, you know, all these costs are going up, and especially in the UK now we have the world's highest diesel price. You know, this is just having a knock-on effect to everything, and all these costs are mounting up. And I saw it on the you know, people keep talking about in falling inflation in the UK. Falling inflation does not mean a fall in prices. It just means the prices don't go up as quick. You know, they're still going up. It's ridiculous. But, you know, the prices are still on the rise. I think it was Rishi Sunak. Rishi Sunak in an interview, he said, and this is just how out of touch with reality is. He said, if we bring down inflation, people will have more money to spend or something. And that's just not the way it works. You know, it's ridiculous. You know, the cost of everything in the UK is just going up and up and up. I went to an, how do I say it? I went to a Scottish fast food restaurant like a couple of days ago, and I don't usually go to these places, but again, I was just shocked how expensive everything was. I was looking at things and I was thinking, I'm sure that was £1 last time, or 99 pence last time I came in, and it's like £1.70 now or something. And you know, I think the way that these inflation rates are communicated to us, we don't see them because they're happening incrementally and they're happening, you know, so often. But you know, if you take a step back from this and you look and you think, and then you go back, like, you know, the Scottish fast food restaurant, and you're like, wow, these prices really, really, really have gone up. So inflation is good though. If you're Rishi Sunak and you're a billionaire, inflation's really good, because your £1 million, you know, property portfolio has just become a 1.5 million property portfolio, or whatever the rates are, you know. So the prices of everything is going up. And now I want to talk about property a minute. And remember, guys, okay, this is not financial advice. I'm not qualified to give you a financial advice. If you want financial advice, find a competent financial advisor if you can find one. But yesterday's video, we spoke about we was talking about being prepared for, you know, emergency crisis, and we spoke about what the government said: 3 days food, 3 days water, all the rest of it. And one of the things I said was, okay, that's fine. What about employment preparedness? What are you going to do to pay your bills? You know, because yes, there could be an emergency crisis, but there could also be a crisis where you're not working and you still have to pay your bills. You know, for example, in the state of, if we was at war with another country, would we, you know, and you were laid off because there was no work or whatever, how would you pay your bills? And that's kind of what I've come to, guys, okay? So I found an article that, all these articles I'll put in the bio, guys. But yeah, an article about how, you know, how things are, you know, because we don't really have anything to base this on other than what's happening in Ukraine. Because, you know, Ukraine is under full occupation. There's a war going on in Ukraine. So I'll read you what things that have been happening in Ukraine, and I'll give you my conclusion. So the armed conflict in Ukraine raises numerous questions for borrowers, which, you know, nobody's talking about this in the UK, guys. All right. They're reluctantly talking about having... she's got the phone on me. They're reluctantly talking about, you know, 3 days food, 3 days water, but nobody's talking about financially how to protect yourself. What do you do if you're a borrower and, you know, for example, if your house gets taken out and you've just got a pile of rubble, do you still have to pay your mortgage? Will your insurance company cover you? But anyway, guys, we'll go on to that. So yeah, armed conflict in Ukraine raises numerous questions for borrowers. Should loans be repaid during wartime, or might they be forgiven? Unfortunately, even with property destruction, difficulties may arise with the bank. Now, what's the bank's main purpose? Is it there to look after your money? Is it there to find you a house? No. The bank's main purpose is to get as much of your money from your account into their account as possible. Now, if there's no clause in your, I don't know, in your house deeds or whatever, then, you know, legally, I guess you would still have to keep paying that mortgage. So then you'd have to look to your house insurance. Anyway, we'll come on to that again afterwards, guys. Business Insider says he says wars and other armed conflicts do not automatically nullify loan agreements. This means that even if properties are destroyed, mortgage loans remain active. So what about mortgages in the event of war? In exceptional circumstances, banks may implement loan extension programs that allow payment deferrals until armed conflict is over. Such an extension may apply to the entire installment or its principal part. Loan restructuring can include reducing the margin and extending the repayment period, which helps borrowers better manage their obligation during tough times. The National Bank of Ukraine's response is an example of such actions. As of 25th February 2022, the day after the invasion, the Central Bank of Ukraine recommended that Ukrainian commercial banks not treat loan delinquencies as defaults if repayment issues stem from Russian aggression. This recommendation is in effect for the duration of the conflict and 30 days after its conclusion. So I think what we can gather from this, what the Ukrainians have done, is they have just said basically, if people can't afford to pay their loans back because of the Russian aggression, then they shouldn't pick up any penalties. But that's in Ukraine, where they've got a full-scale invasion. Now, we're not going to get a full-scale invasion here in the UK. Not going to happen. I just don't see it. Think about the logistics that would have to happen. Putin or whoever, if it was coming from Ukraine, let's just use that as as a starting point. The Russians would have to push through Ukraine. They'd have to secure Ukraine. They would have to then push through Poland. They'd have to push through Czechoslovakia, through Germany, through France. Guys, by the time that happened, I just don't see that ever happening, guys, all right? What I do see happening in the UK is death by 1,000 cuts. So industries will be going down, people will be unemployed, and it will happen slowly. It will grind things down. A company will become under cyber attack. They won't be able to continue. There'll be shortages within X, Y, and Z, and then that company won't be able to continue. People will be going bankrupt and having to lay people off. That's kind of the thing I see. And under these circumstances, that's not all-out war, I really do see that a situation where people are losing their jobs in the UK because of a conflict in Eastern Europe, having these knock-on effects. But because in the UK there's no active war, there's no occupation, these emergency measures wouldn't be able to be brought in. Which brings me back to what I was kind of alluding to at the beginning. On insurance policies, do people have sufficient housing insurance, to weather that storm? And if not, is it even something that's available there? Because that is something I really feel that will be a problem to a lot of people, a lot of homeowners. Because guys, be under no illusion, the banks will take these houses back. Remember what I just said. It's not the banks. The bank are not there to look after your money. The bank are not there to give you the best products. The bank are not there to give you a nice fancy chair and a pat on the back and a cup of tea. No, don't even think that. The banks are there. They're a business. The banks are there to make money. It's not a revelation. It's nothing conspiratorial. The banks are there to make money. And once you start understanding that, you understand why they make their decisions, and then you can make better informed decisions yourself. So what I'm talking about here, guys, I'm trying to get through, and I'm trying to, expand and communicate is, do you have, you've got your food, you've got your water, you've got your radio, you've got your flashlight, you've got everything ready for an emergency crisis. You and your family can live 2 weeks unaided, absolutely fine. You've got your bug out bag, you've got your urban survival kit. Have you got job security? What if your company goes bust? What if your bank goes bust? There's a whole host of financial problems. And remember, guys, I'm not a financial advisor. I can't give you financial advice. All I'm doing is asking you to think yourselves. Do you have sufficient equity? Do you have sufficient liquidity to weather that storm? Can you weather it, and how long can you weather it for? If you remember over the last crazy 4 years or whatever it was, we can't say certain words on these platforms. If you remember over the last few crazy years, some people got added mortgage assistance from the government. Will that be extended? We don't know, but what we do know is it's always best to take responsibility ourselves and to make sure that we've looked into this. Maybe you look at this thing and you think, you know what? Yes, I could get this, wartime insurance or something, but it's too expensive and I don't think it's necessary. Absolutely fine. At least you've looked into it. What I will say though is right now, if you get wartime insurance in the UK right now, it will be a lot cheaper than if you do that when things are actually going bang and things are exploding. And remember the soft war targets I've said, and we talked earlier about the drones, how cheap they are to pack them with explosives and go and do something, take out an electricity substation, start, targeting one specific company. Target one specific company, that company goes bust, they have to lay off all their staff. That's going to put a huge burden on the already loaded system. So all these things are soft war targets. The financial system, I feel in the UK, is fragile as it is. And if people start getting laid off, what I don't want to see is I don't want to see people losing their houses because they didn't think forwards and they didn't plan in advance and they didn't see this coming. So guys, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments, guys. I'm going to mag to grid.